muss sie denn zur Städtele hinaus und du, mein Schatz, bleibst hier. Wenn ich wieder komm, kehr ich ein, mein Schatz, bei dir. Kann ich gleich nicht allweil bei dir sein, an ich doch mein Freude an dir. Wenn ich wieder komm, kehr ich ein, mein Schatz, bei dir.
side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten the way if we keep on the sunny side of life. Though the storm is very breaky day, but she knows that the cherry's so near. Storm and cloud will in time pass away. The sun again will shine bright and clear. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten the way if we keep on the sunny side of life. To Canaan's land I'm on my way, where the soul of man never dies. My darkest night will turn to day, where the soul of man never dies. You'll see there will be no sadness, there will be no fear in night, where all is peace, there's joy and love, and the soul of man never dies. A rose is blooming there for me, where the soul of man never dies, and I will spend eternity where the soul of man never dies. Dear friend, there'll be no sad farewell, there'll be no grieving night, where all is peace, there's joy and love, and the soul of man never dies. In this world that is drifting and changing, when the faith of the people is torn, there's a nation of hope and of freedom, where the sons of courage are born. 'Tis the land of the star-spangled banner, 'tis the nation as fair as the day. Thank God for the land born of freedom. Thank God for the USA. Thank God for the USA. Land of the brave and the true. Thank God for the old American way, for the stars and the red, white, and blue. Thank God for the land we love, life and our liberty. Thank God for the right to be an American. Thank God for the USA. The Savior calls, I will answer. When He calls for me, I will hear. When the Savior calls, I will answer. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness secret seems untold. Precious Father, loving Mother, fly across the lonely years, and old home scenes of my childhood in fond memory appear. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes untold. There's a call comes ringing for the restless waves in the light, in the light. There are souls to rescue, there are souls to save, in the light, in the light, in the light. The blessed gospel light, let it shine on your shores, in the light. The blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore, forevermore. I have heard of a land on the faraway strand, is a beautiful home of the soul. Built by Jesus on high, there we never shall die. 'Tis a land where we never grow old. Never grow old, never grow old. In a land where we'll never grow old. Never grow old, never grow old. In a land where we'll never grow old. In that beautiful home where we'll never more roam, we shall be in that sweet by and by. Happy praise to the King, through eternity sing. 'Tis a land where we never shall die. Never grow old, never grow old. In a land where we'll never grow old. Never grow old, never grow old. In a land where we'll never grow old. God be with you till we meet again. By His counsels guide uphold you. With His sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet. opening way before you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again.
I thanked a whole bunch of you for coming already, and I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm Jens Zorn, for those of you who haven't met me. And what we're going to do is just have some people come up here and say a few words in memory of Jens Zorn, my father. And there's refreshments here we can have afterwards, or you can sneak some right about now. But I just want to start by bringing up the first speaker, Dr. Lou Lee. Is he here? He is not here yet. Let's move on to the next speaker in our program.
So can you hear me here? So Jens Zorn was a colleague of mine and a friend. My name is Joachim Jaenicke. I also go by the name Quinn Jaenicke. Jens was a remarkable person. We all know that. I have to take my glasses off. I once translated for him from German into English a set of postcards and letters written shortly after he arrived with his parents from Germany in 1934 at age 3. These were communications written by Emmy Noether. I'm using the German pronunciation of her name. Written by Emmy Noether to Jens's father, Max Zorn. Both were eminent mathematicians. Both were refugees from Germany. Emmy had arrived a year earlier. The purpose of this mail exchange was primarily to find a permanent position for his father. Jens pointed out to me with some amusement that his father made the wise decision not to accept an offer from the University of Tomsk in the Soviet Union, where Emmy Noether's brother worked. This subject came up also in the communications. Jens and I saw each other often during the Braunberg lunches of the retired physics professors Tuesday at noon. These lunches ended with COVID. Jens made numerous helpful comments to me with regard to a recent book which I put together with the World War II letters home from my 3 older brothers who served in the German army. He insisted that the book included translation into English. We interacted over the years numerous times on Facebook. He contributed, Jens Zorn, he contributed many wise words of wisdom. In fact, my last interaction with Jens happened on Facebook in December 2025, only 4 weeks before he died. He commented with an exceptionally nice remark. He didn't respond anymore to the letter which I wrote to him thereafter. I saw Jens for the last time in February 2024, 2 years ago. I visited him together with his close friend Adele Laporte. Jens looked a little frail, but he was, of course, sharp as ever. He also had to carry the burden with his beloved wife, Frances. At the very end of my brief summary, I want to mention a special letter which I received from the Detroit Institute of Art some years ago. This letter included a picture of Matisse painting on the left-hand side And on the right-hand side, it says, a contribution has been made to the Detroit Institute of Art in memory of Krista Janicki, a warm, gracious woman who remains in our hearts, by Jens Zorn. Krista was my wife who had died 2 years earlier. Jens knew her. This is what Jens did. I will never forget it. Thank you for listening.
Stephen Forrest.
Hi, I'm Steve Forrest, a professor of physics. I'm Steve Forrest, a professor of physics at the University of Michigan, and so good morning to you all in this celebration of Jens Zorn's many contributions to the University of Michigan physics and arts community. I have been asked by Eric to comment specifically on Jens's scientific contributions, which is quite an honor, as Jens made several important contributions to atomic physics in addition to being a wonderful human, what is known as a mensch. And it is fitting that his contributions be noted. After all, Jens became a historian of the physics department, so we now are tasked with including his contribution in our history. Jens was a member of the storied AMO, also known as the Resonance Group, in the physics department, almost completely dominated by high-energy physicists. My apologies to the high-energy physicists in the room. A few of the other members of that club were John Ward, Bill Williams, Peter Franken, Bob Lewis, and maybe a bit on the periphery, my own advisor, Mike Sanders, Gabi Weinreich, Mike Bretz, Len Sander, and Tom Whitten. I know I have left out others, but at the time I was only a graduate student trying to navigate the difficult experience while closeted away in the sub-basement and sometimes the sub-sub-basement. Is there yet another even deeper undiscovered basement at Randall? But even at that time, although I never took a class from Jens, I knew him as a constant, kind, and caring, ubiquitous presence who descended to the depths of Randall, always with a camera in hand to chat and snap pictures of us grad students at work. Interestingly, one of those photos just showed up in a recent article in Michigan Engineer of me and fellow grad student Sam Polanco, taken in, I think, 1977. So Jens's own area of research was spectroscopy of atoms. He used an unusual technique introduced with George Chamberlain at Yale in the 1960s. This was called atomic beam electrostatic deflection method. After leaving Yale in 1962, he came to UM, where he spent his scientific career in our physics department until his retirement in 2009. At UM, he continued his work on investigating atomic structure using what later became known as molecular beam resonance spectroscopy, a technique in which he played a central pioneering role and for which he was recognized as being a fellow of the American Physical Society in 1973. Interestingly, that was the same year that Dick Sands and Art Rich, also UM professors, became fellows of the APS, so we have a very distinguished faculty here. In fact, the first such experiments with magnetic resonance of atomic beams was developed by Rabi at Columbia immediately prior to World War II. The basic idea is that a beam of atoms prepared in a particular quantum excited state are passed through magnets to select a desired subset of atomic states at a detector somewhat downstream. It's sort of a cross between the famous Stern-Gerlach experiments looking at atomic spins and molecular spectroscopy. With this technique, Jens and his many students, 24 in all, over a period of 39 years, many of whom have gone on to have their own distinguished careers, revealed the excited state of multiple and polarization properties of many atomic species, such as helium, with, I think, Dave Crosby, the alkali metals, such as sodium, potassium, rubidium and cesium, and high molecular weight atoms such as thallium, with many more complex structures, much more complex structures. This work was significantly deepened, has significantly deepened our knowledge of the atomic structure of matter. Much of his work actually was in developing complex molecular beam spectrometers. In looking at his papers, many delve into the details of how the magnets and other instrumentation was designed and constructed, and how well they delivered very high precision data on atomic structure. It seems that there is a straight line from his development of spectrometers to his focus in later years on developing beautiful metal sculptures, honoring the major accomplishments of other Michigan physicists, and even the broader community, such as the Faculty Women's Club sculpture outside of the Michigan League. And I think there's a maquette or something over here that's almost like the sculpture. Indeed, his technical and artistic careers have been intertwined with his interest in history from the very beginning. I think it was this combined interest that made him such a good scientist and educator. I'd just like to close with a personal story with Jens in my own life. As I mentioned at the beginning, Jens was a very welcome presence in my graduate student life, and I would venture to say many graduate students, dropping in to take pictures and chat. I don't know if I've ever seen Jens without a camera in hand. I had a pretty rough time as a graduate student at UM in the 70s, and it was Jens and Mike Bretz and Tom Whitten who would submerge into the sub-basement to check on me from time to time. That made all the difference, leading eventually to my graduation, which was actually never assured. For some reason, they took me back. But I lost touch with Jens after graduate school and didn't connect with him until I returned to UM as a faculty member in 2006. Then again, he would occasionally drop into my West Hall office and chat with me about the history of physics department, an interest I shared. I also was very excited about Zorn's sculptures between Randall and West Hall. They reminded me of the extraordinary role that our department played in bringing modern physics to the US in the 30s and beyond. So when I began writing my first textbook on organic electronics in 2015, it was natural for me to turn to Jens to help me with the cover art. I didn't want the usual cover one often finds on technical books that show a circuit or something representing present but also transient images of current discoveries. I was looking for something more abstract and timeless. After a few chats with Jens, he came up with a perfect image that was central to my own research that represented the fundamental quantum phenomenon of spin-orbit coupling, something he had a great deal of knowledge about. And it's a process that's used in every one of billions of displays today. It was a meaningful drawing that only Jens could have done. I asked him to build me a sculpture of it as well, but he said his hands weren't cooperating in making sculptures as well as they had in the past, so that work never was realized in 3D. But the image does grace many bookshelves today. Anyway, fast forward to my second book. I guess I've been busy. And again, I needed a cover image. So I went right back to Jens when I saw that a sculpture had been just installed in the physics walk entitled Elmer Imes, Quantized Rotation. This joint effort by Jens and David Crosby, and it fit perfectly into the theme of my book. I asked them both for permission to use it, and now I'm proud to have two books with covers by the same artist with equally brilliant and beautiful images. Of course, Jens couldn't just provide the art. He also had to tell a story of its origins. Elmer Imes was the first black PhD in physics at UM in 1918, and arguably the first African American to earn a PhD in physics in the US. This was so typical of Jens, to couple science to art, to a very human story and experience. Like everyone here, I will miss Jens greatly. He played such a major role in so many lives. He was a scientist, teacher, artist, and most importantly, a very fine human being. He was a mensch indeed. Thank you.
Hi, well, I'm Dave Crosby. I've got an honorable mention before, I guess. Jens was my friend for 60 years. We co-authored a short paper in the Review of Scientific Instruments in 1966. We collaborated on the I'm sculpture just mentioned by Steve in 2024. It was installed on campus then, dedicated on campus then. It's been a long and close friendship. No, closer? Okay. I'm not going to start over. You're welcome. Many knew Jens as a gifted teacher. The one award that he displayed in his home office was this one. He was always talking about back-of-the-envelope calculations. This is the back-of-the-envelope award. Presented to him, I won't read the whole thing, in 1992 by his students for his service to undergraduates and his dedication to undergraduate education. It was the one award that he posted. As well as physics, Jens had an abiding interest in music. He's singing in a gospel group and an Appalachian culture. He led a number of RC freshman seminar trips to Berea College, where we met up with Smith Powell's group. T had been a graduate student here, and then took that group, mixed group, back into the coal counties in Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky. He was always interested in ways to visualize physical phenomena. The first time I met him in his office, I remember small sculptures meant to help visualize electron orbitals. His more ambitious sculptures are now publicly displayed on campus, which we've talked about, Steve talked about, as well as at pieces at MIT, Stanford, Fisk University in Nashville. That's the IMS piece that we duplicated. Also pieces in Reno, Mexico City, and elsewhere. The catalog of his completed work is impressive. And I'll say in air quotes, catalog of maquettes for pieces yet to be realized is large. Jens had a passion, and Steve mentioned this, had a passion for the history of physics and of the department he felt so privileged to be a part of for so long. He was concerned that his department would forget its history. As he was a skilled interviewer, he spent hours interviewing physicists and others in the department, as well as people around about. He also amassed a large collection of experimental artifacts, ranging from an optical device shipped to the department in 1898 to Don Glazer's original bubble chamber. During his time in the Navy, he also became interested in vacuum tubes, kind of an obsolete technology now, and amassed a large collection of those tubes, each of them remembered for its specific purpose, as well as celebrated as a visually satisfying small sculpture. His collections were not all of a technical nature. One day, as I was helping clean out storage cabinets in the kitchen at their home in Dorset, I ran across an unopened bottle of homemade wine that I had given him. It was labeled Merry Christmas, 1973. Further excavation yielded a similar but earlier bottle from Tom English, Jens's first graduate student. It might still be there. As we know, Jens was a skilled photographer. His photos adorn many book jackets. I once asked him how he became interested in photography. He allowed us how he was a bit shy in high school, and he found that photography gave him a reason to interact with the pretty girls. I'll point out that he did manage to be married to one of those pretty girls for more than 70 years. Jens was a humble and caring man, and those are the qualities that meant the most to me. He was always willing to lead a helping hand when needed. Over the last decade, I was lucky enough to spend several weeks a year with Jens and Fran. During those visits, we spent countless hours working out the details and design of future sculptures and making maquettes for those sculptures. We also spent considerable time together in what he referred to as deacquisitioning. Trying to place his collections where they might be appreciated. We also spent countless hours reminiscing, which usually included telling Peter Franken stories. For those of you who know who Peter, the students were, the stories were abundant. These stories were often found to be more interesting if told than listened to while sipping a wee bit of bourbon. Jens became progressively debilitated, and the last few years were hard on him physically, but to my eye, he remained as sharp as ever. He never lost his devotion to Fran. He always made sure that she was cared for and that her life was the best that it could be as she struggles with dementia. He felt lucky beyond all expectation that Catherine, Kenesha, Felicia, and others were there to help them in these last few years. He was sure that life at home would have been impossible without them. For me, the real essence of Jens showed in that love and devotion to Fran and to those around him. It was with this care that he demonstrated repeatedly what kind of man he was. Excuse me. He was my good friend, and I miss him every day.
When I was in high school, my best friend's dad was Jens Zorn. I got to know him and Fran slowly, the way you do with the parents of friends. As I hung around the Zorn house, I recognized that theirs was a life very different from any life I'd known or even imagined. Books were stacked impossibly high everywhere. Jens and Fran were sincerely interested in everything. Whatever this life was, I was transfixed. I lived with the Zorns during my college summers while Eric interned away at faraway newspapers. In those years, I learned a lot from Jens. Some things he taught me directly. Atomic physics, how to work in a dark room, the importance of the history of science in a science education. Indirectly, he taught me more things than that. Behind it all was a message more subtle, a message that I eventually took to be a life plan. I didn't know anything about the idea of a life of the mind, but Jens showed the way. He did it with very little instructing, just his calm way, by his very openness, by his constant disavowal of pretense, by his remarkable range of interests. He could light the way for a life. I spent my entire working life teaching physics to young people, hoping to bring an interest in ideas to my students as he brought that interest to me. What a piece of luck. I got to be Jens Zorn's friend for 50 years. Last fall, I visited the remarkable Japanese garden in Portland. If you haven't been there, I recommend it. It's a moving and beautiful garden. I found the place hard to take a picture of, since nothing that I could frame seemed like a match for how wonderful the garden was. I sent my best effort to Jens, acknowledging it wasn't a very good picture, and asking him why it wasn't very good. He wrote back a great answer. He readily, but gently, agreed that the picture wasn't very good. Here's one quote from his lengthy email. "I think you haven't decided what you want this picture to be about, and so have included too many features of the garden." He was right on the money again, but that's not news to me or to anyone here, I suspect. What I know and what this photo exchange makes clear to me is that when it mattered, when I got to be around Jens daily, I knew what I was looking at. I knew what I wanted life to be about, and that was a desire to bring to my students the joy of a life of inquiry and the life of the mind that he had brought to me. In this way, as the generations go on, he lives on and on.
Hi, my name is Kanchia Bruce, and this is Catherine Glover. I'm not a perfect speaker. I'm one of Jens' caregiver. Sorry. Jens was a really good man. Today we are here to honor him and remember all that he has done for everyone. And he has made a very big impact in my life. Jens was strong. He was kind, respectful person. He has shown strength, not only in hard times, but also in ways he has cared for people around him. His kindness made others feel welcome, and he made others feel welcome, and his respect for everyone showed the kind of person he truly was. Many of us have memories of Jens that will stay with us forever, whether it was his smile, his words, his encouragement, or simply the way he treated people with dignity. He left as the last impact on those who knew him. Losing someone like Jens is never easy, but it's not only about sadness, it's always about remembering the good moments he shared with us, the positive influence he had on our lives. Jens' strength, kindness, and respect for others, qualities we have carried with us by living with the same kindness and respect he showed. He helped us help keep his memory alive. We will always remember Jens, and he will always have a place in my heart. I enjoyed every 5 years that I had with the Zorns, and he was a father that I never had. He showed me in good directions. He was helping me finish my GD to go into nursing school. He was very good to me and my family. But he was also stubborn. After 2, we have to tell him, do this, do that, do this. No, I don't want to do this. But at the end, he will do it. And he always prefer our food over fast food. We took very good care of him on his last days, and we are taking care of his wife, that her dementia has progressed, and we are doing our best that we can for him, for her. And I will always love Jens, and he will always have a part in my heart for him. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? All right. I have to have it pretty low down. My name is Adele Laporte, and I'm here to offer a few thoughts about Jens as a friend over a long period of time. And as I put together the words I wanted to convey, I now realize, listening to everyone else, that he was a long-term friend of an incredible number of people. It was his magic power to be a friend over time. So I want to tell you a little bit about the friendship that we shared. I first met Jens in 1963. I had just returned from a year and a half in Japan with my husband, Otto Laporte. And Jens and Fran had come into the department which in those days was small, very friendly, and family-oriented. For instance, if you're about to have a baby, which I did during that period of time, you got a baby shower and parties that were very family-oriented and very friendly. So Otto and Jens became good friends as well as colleagues, even though Otto was a senior member of the department and Jens was essentially brandy new. But they were friends and they were colleagues as well. And when Otto died in 1971, Jens and Fran were incredibly kind, supportive, and just as they have been described, warm and caring. My life took a somewhat different turn, however. After Otto died in 1971, I pursued a legal career and I devoted myself to raising our 3 daughters. So I did not see them as frequently, and actually I didn't see them very much over a long period of time. We came together again on the subject, or in the face of dementia, for Fran and for my second husband, Jim Craven. Jens knew about it perhaps before, but at least in the obituary, and he reached out to me. And it was a coming together in sharing the anxiety, sadness, difficulty of seeing a much-loved spouse slip away. So that brought us together again. And then a somewhat fortuitous event brought us again closer together. And that was that I received a phone call from someone I didn't know, a man by the name of Steve Hiltner from Princeton. And Steve Hiltner's father had been the chair of the astronomy department, and when Walter Colby, more about that later, had died, they had bought that house. And it's literally a stone's throw from Jens and Fran's house. And so what he wanted to do was, did I know anything about a physicist by the name of Walter Colby? Well, yes, indeed, I did. He had been a good friend, and in fact, this goes really far back. He was started in the department in 1909 and had been a mentor and really responsible for bringing some of the European physicists, such as George Uhlenbeck and Otto Laporte and Sam Gauchman, bringing them to Michigan. So it was Steve Hiltner's intention. He wanted to make a Wikipedia page for Walter Colby. He thought it was quite unjust that he didn't have one. And so I said, the perfect person to consult is Jens Zorn. So we got in touch, but Steve is headquartered in Princeton, and so it turned out that it was mostly Jens and me who pursued the project. But as the project went on slowly and fitfully, Jens asked me, would I be willing to talk about my relationship to the department? And he would record it. And I knew, of course, that he was, as others have attested to, basically the historian, unofficial, I think, but the historian of the department, and had taken great pains to preserve and the memory and document the achievements of the physicists, contemporary, previous physicists as well. So we started out with Jens asking me questions But pretty soon the questions became conversations, and after that, the conversations became confidences, and we developed a very close reciprocal relationship founded in shared experiences, some amount of shared history, and of course, Jens's wonderful ability to be interested in people. I think that was one of the hallmarks of his life, that he had this warm personality, but he had a genuine interest in other people. And I think that's a part of why he became the historian that he was. In any event, we developed a friendship that became centered around lunch, which I think Catherine can attest to. And we met with frequency and spent a lot of time just in good conversation. And a lot of it was fairly serious. We had serious things to talk about. But on the other hand, Jens could be funny. Jens could be lighthearted. And over the last, 3 years or so, we began to meet regularly for lunch. And Catherine would sometimes be responsible, and I would bring lunch and other times. And at some point, Jens decided to describe it all as gruel. I don't know why, but maybe he thought my childhood was somewhat Dickensian. Anyway, in the last little while, as his health declined, we would meet. We always met at that house because Jens really, for the last several years, stayed pretty much at home. And we would meet for lunch, and even up until almost the very end, he was always ready for more conversation, for more gruel, and he, as if I hope I can say this, when the end was near, he said, "All's well that ends well." And it ended well for him. He lived a life long and full of achievements and full of friendships. And I thought of him in the end as a friend for all seasons. None better. Thank you.
I'm Johanna Zorn, Jens Zorn's daughter-in-law, and I know where Adele and Jens were sitting because it's where you always sit when you go to the Zorn's house, and that is at the kitchen table where we spent about 5 hours last night. When I think about my father-in-law, I think about the place we spent countless hours together, the kitchen table, playing board games with the family, once in a while, watching TV, but mostly talking. Over breakfast, over lunch, over dinner, and then maybe later, some dessert, maybe some ice cream, maybe some fruit, definitely lots of coffee. I could not believe how much coffee the Zorns could drink until late into the evening. Jens was, hands down, the best conversationalist I've ever known, and I just loved that about him. He was genuinely curious, as people have said. about me, about Eric, about the kids and their partners, or really anyone who might be around the table on any given day, he'd be sure to ask them questions to draw them out. He always made them feel seen, recognized. They were there at the table. He loved talking about ideas. And over the many, many decades that we sat around that simple table, this never changed. He would talk about how sports are ruining academia, or we would talk about how AI is going to change our lives. He was not afraid of technology, so that was always interesting. He was always up on the latest. He would talk about where creativity comes from. And he wasn't afraid to share the stories of his life, even if they didn't paint him in the best light. And he wasn't afraid to wade into topics that were kind of controversial and that he knew we might not even agree about. And that's what made these conversations so honest. And as people have said, there was lots of laughter too. There was nothing more enjoyable than watching Jens's whole face light up, usually cracking himself up over some old hijinks or memory of his more scrappier days. But what I think really set Jens apart, what made him that absolutely fabulous conversationalist, was he was just the most consummate listener. He listened to everyone, and he made us all feel heard. And that's the image that I hope that I never, ever lose of Jens. Him on one side of the table in his rolling Aaron chair, master of ceremonies in the warmest of ways, making us feel like there's no other place that we'd want to be. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alex.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Ben.
Yeah, and we are Jens's grandchildren. I guess I'll say something and then we'll kind of go. Yeah. Jens was an amazing grandfather. Always so warm and so fun. And as others have said, whenever we would meet, we would always just chat about anything, what was going on in our lives. He and I would chat about physics a lot. Actually, when I was younger, I spent a week with them, sort of camp grandparents. And one distinct memory I have from this experience is, this was, I forget exactly how old I was, but it was before I had learned any kind of serious algebra or really kind of delved into any interesting math. And we sat down and he's like, we're gonna work on a couple of math problems together and create a write-up of what we've done. And I remember we worked on three things. We did one problem where, beans costed $1 each and peas, expensive, peas were 15 cents. And if, you spent $20, how many beans and peas did you buy? And you had to come up with the algebraic relationship or the possible values or something. He taught me the Pythagorean theorem. If you walk 3 miles west and then 4 miles north, how far are you from where you started? And also a little practical knowledge, which is if you invest $1,000 in the bank that pays a 5% annual interest, how much do you have after 10 years? And we wrote up this document, and it was just a great experience, and he's really supported me. I went on to study math and physics in college, and then afterwards get a math PhD, and through this whole experience, he's been, of course, so supportive of all those endeavors. But also, a famous, accomplished physicist talking to his grandson about physics is somewhat expected. He also had a very lovely interaction with my now fiance, who has a podcast. Well, her job is that she runs a business that takes care of, that's basically sends nannies or doulas to people's houses who have newborns. And she has a podcast in which she discusses various aspects of newborn care and parenthood, and was discussing this with him, and he became like the #1 fan of this podcast and would like regularly send her emails about her latest episode and all that he had learned from it, and all the details of our relationship that he had learned that she had included in those episodes. So he was just such a great person and such a great grandfather, and I will miss him very much.
You can't set the microphone at a reasonable height for the Zorn men and for everyone else. There's no solution for that. But it's been really special to hear about all the ways that my Opa has touched everyone's lives, and I know it was different for all of us just because of how multifaceted he was and how his interests spun all different directions and spanned so many decades and changed throughout. But what I remember about from talking to him was a project I did in school, in middle school, about the Renaissance man, and I compared my Opa's life and all the things that he did to Leonardo da Vinci, and I made a daily schedule for each of them and how they would sort of engage all their different interests and how he was able to fit physics and art and music and family into such a full, vibrant, colorful life that he lived and that he shared with all of us. I don't recall any deep conversation that I had with him about whether it was emotions or spirituality or the meaning of life, but we did get to experience what I think is maybe the most profound, ultimate, unparalleled expression of shared humanity, which is making music together and singing in harmony. And the songs that we sang, the soundtrack to this multi-generational chorus we put together was these gospel hymns that maybe you heard some of them as you were walking in, playing over the speaker. And if you knew when we would visit and then we'd leave on Sunday to head back home, we never got the impression that they were going to go to church afterwards. But still, even then, these gospel hymns, they resonated something within us. And it didn't even need to be explained. It was never a question. We knew that it connected us and bonded us as a family, connected us to a spirit with maybe no name or affiliation. But it always made me think about those Sundays that we would spend in Ann Arbor as we were getting ready to leave. We would wake up that final morning and congregate in that kitchen. I would hear the sizzling of eggs and hot butter in the pan, hear the clattering of little paws on the ground from Molly and Wotan, and hear the chatter about news, politics, oftentimes sports, and the one perennial fond memory that I have of my Oma and Opa together is us leaving the driveway and them closing the gate behind us and hugging in warm embrace and waving goodbye.
I'd like to think that each of my siblings and I inherited an important quality of Opa. Alex received a love of math, Ben a love of music, and I received a love of design. From an early age, I was intrigued by the different artistic projects Opa was working on, from material studies with plastic pipes to paper maquettes of his sculptures and all of the fascinating and unusual objects in their home. Their living room was a mini museum of sculptures, paintings, photography books, and tokens of their lives. One year, we arrived at Christmas to find the tree replaced with a series of sculptures wrapped in twinkle lights. He was always interested in talking about a design problem, often grabbing a napkin or the back of an envelope to sketch something out. He'd share a new material he was working with in the shop, a new Photoshop filter he was having fun testing out. A perennial topic of conversation was how new technologies were shaping art and design. His endless curiosity was so inspiring. He unconditionally supported our dreams to pursue our interests. I remember how much I enjoyed getting to share the projects I was working on in architecture school with him, knowing he'd appreciate the results of hours spent in a model shop. I also loved hearing stories about his past. Every time we sat around the kitchen table, there was a new anecdote to uncover, especially during my more recent visits when I began to ask a few more questions. I heard stories about his high school years, his travels as a young adult, and the early years of his relationship with Oma. He would share stories of the relatives with whom he kept in touch with, and I will really miss those conversations. He was such an inspiring and kind person. I can only begin to appreciate how lucky it is to have known him and been guided by his generosity and wisdom. His memory will continue to inspire me to be curious, never stop learning and creating. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming today. Just by being here, you are affirming what a remarkable person my father was. After all of today's speakers attesting to his accomplishments and abilities, I really don't need to repeat those wonderful words. Instead, I would like to reflect on what kind of person Jens was. One of his most noted characteristics, as other folks have said, was his uncanny knack of making everyone feel seen and feel valued, no matter what their position in life. It didn't matter if a person was a high-ranking administrator, a politician, or the folks who worked on the lawn. He had respect and genuine interest in them. As much caring as Jens showed his students, his friends, his coworkers, and even people he did not know very well, that was just the tip of the iceberg in the amount of caring, love, and support he gave Fran, Eric, myself, and then the rest of the family in later years. Fathers are supposed to lead by example and guide their children with their words and action. Jens was and still is my North Star. He was always there for me. He never let me down. Even now, his calm, logical, and thoughtful voice is there for me. Many people think that the role of the father is to enforce the rules, administer stern guidance, and provide discipline. Jens was not the kind of father to say, "I told you so," when things would go awry. Instead, he would ask how he could be assistance, and then he would take his time to discuss options with me. As an adult, I actually find this level of parental patience quite remarkable. As an example, I made a decision to quit my corporate job here in Ann Arbor and move to California. After a few years, the situation was just not working out for me, and I needed to come back to Ann Arbor. Jens dropped everything he was doing and flew across the country to drive me back to Michigan. He never, ever said anything negative to me about my poor decision-making, and we just cruised companionably along Route 66. We stopped at hilarious, kitschy tourist stops, and we feasted on lobby waffles. And that was a tradition we kept up for many years, was going for waffles. Jens spent a great deal of time with me throughout my childhood, helping me with science and math homework. He used quick, hand-drawn illustrations to visualize concepts, much like his later sculpture, which depicts scientific discoveries. He taught me how to use power tools and machine shop tools. We repaired bicycles, created little statues, and played catch and frisbee. He taught me how to drive a manual transmission. He instilled into me a lifelong interest in art and photography. He encouraged me to freely use his darkroom, which is a place many photographers keep to themselves. Jens was always interested in and supportive of my endeavors, from having horses to having a professional career in art. I have always been extremely grateful for the life he and Fran have afforded me. Jens was a great father. He was also my friend. For the mess of my life, I will always be asking my North Star for advice and guidance. Thank you for being here today.
It's going to hold this, I think. One of the old country songs my father and I used to sing together was "Give Me the Roses While I Live," a 1925 song popularized by the Carter family. Give me the roses while I live, trying to cheer me on. Useless are flowers that you give after the soul is gone. It's a reminder not to wait for events like this to express our appreciation, our respect, and our love for others. Kind words are useless, says one of the verses. When folks lie cold in a narrow bed, don't wait till death to speak kind words. Now should those words be said. My dad lived by that. He kept in contact as best he could with many of you in this room. In fact, in his final years, he prioritized expressing his affection and regard for others through email and Facebook, and lunches and coffee, instead of cleaning out his incredibly cluttered home office, as Karen and I can certainly testify. The thing that I want to say about the roses that he received, that many of you returned that favor and gave him the roses while he lived. He felt appreciated and understood and loved for his warmth and generosity and talents that people have talked about, his accomplishments, his compassion, and his genuine interest in others. He would be flattered and humbled about some of the things that people have said here today, and the tributes that Karen and I have received in emails and cards from a lot of people. But he wouldn't have been surprised, and that's one of the great comforts that I have as I've processed his loss. He got the roses while he lived, in part because he handed out so many bouquets himself. His life was as complete as a life can be. 94 years, most of them in good health, razor-sharp mind till the end, and an end that came quickly, but not so quickly that Karen and I could not be by his bed to ease his passage. He leaves this legacy of artistic and scientific achievement and uncomplicated relationships with me, with Karen, with his daughter-in-law and his grandchildren. And he leaves with us a knowledge of how lucky we were to have him in our lives. People have been talking to me about, sorry about your loss, and it is hard to process, but it's also, I do reflect a lot on how lucky I was, how lucky our family was, and how lucky he was to have gone out after such a long life. He was a gentle soul. It was so rare for him to lose his temper that I can remember only one time. Someone in the family, maybe me in my teen years, will never know. Someone in the family neglected to clean him out and put away the metal popcorn popper in the kitchen, despite his repeated requests. So then one morning, I came downstairs to find the device crushed and flattened on the counter. And it was so out of character for him that it was a family joke to reference the popcorn popper whenever we had a disagreement with him for years to come. He was very generous with his time, as Karen points out and others have said. I didn't have his brain for math and science. He sat with me many nights in high school, going over my homework, never giving me answers, but always prodding me along with questions, asking me to stop and consider all the wrong assumptions I was making. And he was a very devoted man. His last decade or so with Fran has been heartbreaking, but he never stopped trying to engage her with card games, with the most simple interactions you can have with someone who has gone to dementia, or comfort her as her lights were going out. He never stopped trying to repay the great debt that he felt that he owed her for the life that she had given him. Much of him does live on. I didn't inherit his STEM talents, which he got probably from his father, who was an accomplished mathematician. Skipped a generation, went on to Alex, who got his PhD in math. His artistic ability, Karen has inherited and has been passed on to Annie as an architect. His musical talents and interests live on in me and in my son Ben with each generation. About music, his father played a bit of classical guitar. Jens picked up the instrument himself during the so-called folk scare of the late 1950s and early 60s. One of my earliest memories was going to Yale grad student apartment sing-alongs in New Haven as a toddler and falling asleep on piles of coats in the bedrooms to The Worried Man Blues, John Henry, They Call the Wind, Mariah, and other hits of the day. Dad bought a banjo and a mandolin when we moved to Ann Arbor, but he honestly never got his fingers around those instruments. I did eventually, and they were around the house, so I just dabbled with them. And my inspiration to practice came from hearing him and three friends rehearse and perform around Ann Arbor as the Bloodwashed Throng. It was a country gospel group for which he sang tenor and played the harmonica. The joy these four friends had playing and singing together, the camaraderie, the fellowship, the laughs, it was captivating to me. None of them was particularly religious, but they resonated as I do with the power and the beauty of the lyrics, the hope, the joy, the understanding of life as a journey, and the occasional thunderous warnings of doom. I learned almost their entire repertoire, and Dad never said no when I'd ask him to play and sing with me. When I was in high school, he took me along on several of these residential college student trips to Berea, Kentucky that David talked about. They studied the impact of technology on Appalachian culture. And it was there that I was exposed to old-time string band music that became my lifelong hobby. So when Ben was in high school, I took him to Berea to feed his growing interest in traditional American music. And there he made a connection with the director of the string band ensemble at Davis and Elkins College in West Virginia. He ended up with a scholarship to play old-time music, which is fair to say changed his life. And he met his wife, Corey, at Davis and Elkins. He now plays in several bluegrass bands and teaches full-time at a Chicago elementary school. Dad and I continued to sing the old songs together at every one of my monthly visits to Ann Arbor, sometimes for hours around the kitchen table, each song conjuring up precious memories, to borrow one of the titles of the tunes. Now, it was close to 40 years ago that I was last in this room, and it was for a celebration of the life of Bill Williams. He is a U of M physics professor, fellow member of the Bloodwashed Throng. He was just 49 when he died of a plane crash. Dad spoke at that event. He closed by recalling the words to one of their numbers, a song about souls reuniting in heaven called "Shall We Gather at the River." Yes, he said, but we never thought it would start this soon. It's 40 years ago. Jens was the last surviving member of that group. Bill Pearson died in 2000. Bob Lewis died in 2017. So I want to close today by singing a bit of that song together. Ben's going to play the fiddle with me. The words are in your program. And I want to bring up the daughter of Bill Pearson, who's here. Elizabeth, is she here? Where's Elizabeth? And the daughter of Bill Williams and Bill Williams' wife, Shelley. If they could come up and stand here and sing along with me, if you would. This guitar is the guitar they played. I'm going to teach you the chorus first. You got the fiddle there, bud? Bring that fiddle closer to the microphone. Shelley Williams, Kirsten Williams, Elizabeth Pearson. You guys going to sing too? Yeah. Johanna? Karen, join us? No? You can mouth the words. Chorus goes, yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Well, soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Oh, play that fiddle, boy. One more time. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. That flows by the throne of God. Thank you so much for coming, everybody.